The white feather catches morning sunlight as Sergeant Carlos Hathcock settles behind his Winchester Model 70, November 1966. From his hide position overlooking Firebase Hill 55, southwest of Da Nang, he watches enemy movement through the 8-power unital scope. The North Vietnamese soldiers below have no idea they're being observed by the man they call Lông Trắng, white feather. In the past 6 months, Hathcock has become something more than human to the enemy forces surrounding Hill 55. They whisper stories about the ghost sniper who appears and disappears like smoke, leaving death in his wake. The bounty on his head has reached $30,000, 15 times higher than any other American sniper. Today, that bounty will bring his most dangerous challenger. Dr. Charles Henderson, military historian, analyzes captured North Vietnamese documents from 1967. They didn't just fear Hathcock, they studied him. Enemy intelligence files contain detailed psychological profiles, behavior patterns, even sketches of his shooting positions. He had become their primary target because he was systematically dismantling their operations around Hill 55. The numbers tell the story of psychological warfare. In conventional terms, Hathcock is just one Marine among 500 stationed at Hill 55, but his effect on enemy morale multiplies far beyond individual kills. North Vietnamese troops approaching the Hill 55 sector move differently, slower, more cautiously, constantly scanning tree lines for the white feather they know signals death. Captain Edward James Land, commanding officer of the 1st Marine Division Sniper Platoon, recognizes Hathcock's unique value immediately upon his arrival in Vietnam. Carlos didn't just shoot enemies, he became part of the environment itself. Other snipers hid from the enemy. Carlos made the enemy hide from him. The terror campaign begins with Hathcock's first assignment: assassinate a North Vietnamese Army general officer. The mission parameters seem impossible. The target is located 700 yards inside enemy territory, surrounded by security forces, protected by anti-aircraft positions. Conventional wisdom suggests such a mission requires a full company assault. Hathcock volunteers for what his commanders call a suicide mission. For 4 days and 3 nights in March 1967, he low-crawls inch by inch across 2,500 yards of hostile territory without food, water, or sleep. He moves so slowly that enemy patrols pass within feet without detecting his presence. On one occasion, a snake crawls across his back. He remains motionless for 3 hours until it moves away. The psychological effect of this assassination reverberates throughout enemy ranks. Intelligence reports captured later reveal North Vietnamese commanders' growing paranoia about American ghost snipers who can strike anywhere, anytime. Security procedures around high-value targets are tripled, limiting operational effectiveness as officers become afraid to expose themselves. Master Sergeant Roy Benavidez, analyzing enemy psychological assessments in 1968, documents the expanding fear. They started seeing Hathcock everywhere. Every tree line became a potential sniper hide. Every shadow could conceal white feather. One man with a rifle was controlling the behavior of entire battalions. The Apache incident amplifies Hathcock's psychological impact exponentially. Enemy intelligence identifies a female Viet Cong platoon leader known for torturing captured Marines within earshot of Hill 55. Her psychological warfare tactics have demoralized American forces for months, until Hathcock eliminates her with a single shot during a patrol near the firebase. The elimination sends a clear message to enemy psychological warfare specialists. Their own terror tactics can be turned against them. Captured documents reveal enemy commanders ordering their psychological operations units to avoid the Hill 55 sector entirely, effectively ceding psychological control of the area to one American sniper. Lance Corporal John Burke, Hathcock's spotter, documents the expanding psychological dominance during the Elephant Valley operation. We pinned down an entire North Vietnamese company for 2 days with just the 2 of us. Carlos would shoot 1 or 2 soldiers, then we'd relocate. They never knew where we were, but they knew we were watching. By the 2nd day, they wouldn't move during daylight at all. The psychological warfare reaches its peak with the arrival of the enemy sniper known only as Cobra. North Vietnamese intelligence has identified Hathcock as the primary threat to their operations around Hill 55. They dispatch their finest marksmen with specific orders: kill the white feather or die trying. The Cobra's strategy involves systematic psychological pressure designed to draw Hathcock into the open. He begins killing Marines around Hill 55, targeting specific individuals Hathcock knows personally. When he kills a gunnery sergeant outside Hathcock's hooch, the psychological manipulation achieves its intended effect. It becomes personal. "He was doing bad things," Hathcock later recalls. "He was sent to get me, which I didn't really appreciate. He killed a gunny outside my hooch. I watched him die. I vowed I would get him some way or another." The duel that follows becomes legend among both American and enemy forces. For days, the two snipers stalk each other through the jungle near Hill 55. Each is intimately familiar with the other's reputation. Each understands that this encounter will determine not just individual survival, but psychological control over the entire operational area. The psychological tension affects operations across the Hill 55 sector. American patrols report increased enemy activity as North Vietnamese forces position themselves to witness the outcome. Intelligence intercepts reveal enemy commanders betting on the results. Both sides understand they're watching more than a sniper duel. They're witnessing a battle for psychological supremacy. The encounter reaches its climax when Hathcock spots sunlight reflecting off his enemy's scope. In the fraction of a second that determines life or death, he fires first. The bullet travels 300 yards, passes through the Cobra's scope without touching the sides, and kills him instantly with a shot through the eye. "I took his old spot, he took my old spot," which was bad news for him because he was facing the sun, Hathcock explains. "It glinted off the lens of his scope. I saw the glint and shot the glint. I was just quicker on the trigger. Otherwise, he would have killed me." The psychological impact of the Cobra's death radiates throughout enemy forces. The sniper sent specifically to kill the white feather has himself been killed by the white feather. Enemy morale plummets as word spreads that their finest marksmen couldn't match the American ghost. Major General Herman Nickerson, Jr., commanding the 1st Marine Division, analyzes the strategic psychological effect. Hathcock's elimination of the Cobra achieved what conventional operations couldn't: complete psychological dominance over enemy forces in our sector. They stopped trying to match us sniper for sniper and reverted to defensive tactics. The psychological campaign's sophistication becomes apparent through captured enemy training materials. The North Vietnamese developed specific counter-sniper protocols designed exclusively to neutralize the white feather threat. They train entire platoons in anti-sniper tactics, deploy special equipment, modify operational procedures, all focused on one American Marine. Intelligence officer Colonel James Burton documents the enemy's obsessive focus. "They were spending more resources trying to kill one sniper than we spent on entire battalion operations." Hathcock had become their psychological Achilles heel. They couldn't ignore him, couldn't defeat him, couldn't operate normally knowing he was out there. The terror reaches beyond individual engagements to strategic psychological warfare. Many Marines begin wearing white feathers to confuse enemy counter-snipers, spreading the ghost effect across multiple units. Enemy forces now must assume any American position could conceal the legendary white feather, multiplying the psychological impact exponentially. The innovation demonstrates psychological warfare's evolution beyond individual terror tactics to systematic deception operations. Hathcock's reputation becomes a force multiplier, extending his psychological reach far beyond his physical presence. Enemy forces modify behavior across the entire operational area based on the possibility of encountering the white feather. By late 1967, intelligence reports document the comprehensive psychological effect. Enemy units avoid certain areas entirely, modify patrol schedules to minimize exposure, abandon high-value targets deemed too risky. One sniper's psychological dominance has achieved what conventional forces couldn't: voluntary enemy withdrawal from contested territory. Captain William Westbrook, analyzing psychological warfare effectiveness, reaches a stunning conclusion. Hathcock's 93 confirmed kills represent only the visible portion of his impact. His psychological effect prevented hundreds of enemy operations, saved thousands of American lives, and achieved strategic objectives impossible through conventional means. The psychological warfare campaign's medical dimension emerges through enemy casualty reports. North Vietnamese forces operating near Hill 55 show increased rates of stress casualties, decreased operational effectiveness, modified tactical behavior patterns. The fear of encountering the white feather has become a medical condition affecting enemy combat performance. Dr. Robert Lifton, studying combat psychology, identifies the phenomenon. Hathcock created what we now recognize as inverse psychological warfare. Instead of terrorizing civilians to influence military forces, he terrorized military forces to achieve strategic objectives. One sniper's reputation became a weapon of mass psychological destruction. The campaign reaches its tragic conclusion on September 16, 1969, when Hathcock's amphibious tractor strikes a landmine. Despite suffering burns over 40% of his body, he pulls 7 fellow Marines from the burning wreckage before collapsing. The ghost who terrorized enemy forces for 3 years is finally stopped not by enemy action, but by a random mine. The psychological impact of Hathcock's departure reverberates through both American and enemy forces. Intelligence reports document increased enemy activity in areas previously controlled by fear of the white feather. Without the ghost's psychological presence, North Vietnamese forces gradually resume normal operational patterns around Hill 55. The legacy extends beyond Vietnam into modern understanding of psychological warfare. Hathcock proved that individual excellence, properly applied, can achieve strategic psychological effects far exceeding numerical strength. His techniques of psychological dominance through precision, unpredictability, and reputation management influence special operations doctrine today. Master Chief Petty Officer Chris Kyle, studying Hathcock's methods decades later, recognizes the revolutionary psychological approach. He wasn't just hunting enemies, he was hunting their minds. Every shot was calculated, not just for physical effect, but for psychological impact on surviving enemy forces. The white feather's ghost continues to haunt military psychology studies. His systematic use of individual terror to achieve strategic objectives demonstrates that in modern warfare, psychological dominance can substitute for numerical superiority. One Marine with a rifle and a white feather had terrorized an entire enemy army. As American forces withdrew from Vietnam, captured North Vietnamese documents revealed the ultimate testament to Hathcock's psychological campaign. The white feather sniper created more fear among our forces than entire American divisions. We modified operations, avoided territories, changed tactics, all because of one enemy soldier who made himself visible to taunt us. The white feather in the bush hat was never just personal ornamentation. It was psychological warfare made visible, a deliberate challenge that said, "Here I am, come find me if you can." For 93 documented times, and hundreds more unconfirmed, enemies tried to answer that challenge. They all failed. The ghost had terrorized them all.